Some stories are hard to forget, and if you lived in Fort Smith in 1958, this is one story that I doubt you have forgotten. This is the story of Bobby Joe Burns. Bobby Joe Burns was born on August 8, 1929, to Jesse and Edna Burns. They lived in Fort Smith, just off Dodson Avenue on South L Street. The house that Bobby Joe Burns shared with his parents on South L Street in Fort Smith still sits in the same spot today, but there's not an indication one of its horrific past. As you drive down L Street today, you'll see that it's a quiet, family-oriented neighborhood dotted with older homes. Yet there's not an indication of the horrible things that went on within those walls over 50 years before. Growing up as a child, his playmates described him as a happy child, but that was far from the case on a January morning, 1958. Bobby Joe Burns had had a couple of brushes with the law previous to the murder of his mother in 1958. The first time, on September 13, 1951, he was charged with burglary and grand larceny. Bobby Joe had broken into a car that belonged to Dr. Blair. From the car he had taken narcotics and other medical supplies. Then, in January of 1953, he was charged with burglary and grand larceny. Once again, he had broken into a doctor's car. This time, he broke into Dr. Art Martin's car that was parked at 2121 Wolf Lane. From this car, he once again stole narcotics, syringes, and other medical supplies. After the charges both times, he was sent to the Arkansas State Hospital in Little Rock for evaluation. And within 30 days, the doctors agreed that he was not competent to stand trial and was suffering from severe mental illness. Both times that Bobby was taken to the state hospital and deemed to be mentally ill, his mother, Edna, somehow convinced the doctors to release him into her care. Edna felt that she could care for her son at home and he would be better off. Even though the doctors advised against it, Edna had him released into her care. She returned him to Fort Smith, to their home on South L Street, where she took care of him until the day that he murdered her. This is a photo of Bobby Joe Burns that was taken the day after his mother's murder. It appeared in the Southwest American newspaper 2 days later. It was taken during the interrogation with the Fort Smith Police Department. During that interview, he told the police that the voice of God had spoken to him, and he also recited verses out of the book of Revelations, all being reasons for the murder of his mother. During this interrogation, his brother came to visit him at the police station. He also brought him 2 packs of cigarettes. It was said that his brother told him, "Joe, we don't blame you for what happened." There's no way we'll ever know what really transpired inside that home on L Street on that January morning, but what we do know is that Bobby took his mother. After he drugged her, he dismembered her body, decapitated her, cooked parts of her body on the kitchen stove. Then he removed her eyes, her tongue, and her nose, wrapped her head in a sheet, and carried it from his home on L Street all the way to Garrison Avenue to the Immaculate Conception Church. Once he reached the church, he placed her head inside the doors of the church and left it. It's still unclear who the first person was to discover the head inside the Catholic Church. However, there were several people that were deeply affected by the story. The whole community was affected in some way. The police officer who walked the beat on Garrison Avenue and was well liked by everyone was so traumatized by the sight they said that he was never the same again. Reggie Moore recalls that his grandmother was a housekeeper for the Burns neighbor. She was so traumatized that she was never able to return to work. Fort Smith had been shocked, but they did recover, and things were going strong at Fort Chaffee. In fact, in just a few short weeks, Elvis Presley would arrive. Bobby Joe was on his way back to Little Rock, back to the state mental hospital. He was taken back almost immediately, but this time it looked like it was going to be a one-way ticket. The one person he could always count on to come and get him from the hospital was his mother, and his mother wasn't going to be able to save him from the hospital this time. Getting off on an insanity plea and his mother rescuing him wasn't going to happen like it had in the past. In a letter dated February 25, 1958, from the Arkansas State Hospital to Judge Paul Wolf, "Dear Judge Wolf, the examination has been completed in the case of Bobby Joe Burns, who was admitted to the state hospital under Act No. 3 from Sebastian County, Arkansas, and I hereby certify that the following is a true and correct report of the findings in this case. Diagnosis: schizophrenic reaction, paranoid type. It is the opinion of the examining physician and the joint opinion of the psychiatric staff that Bobby Joe Burns was mentally ill to the degree of legal irresponsibility at the time of this mental examination. It was signed by C.V. Taylor, M.D. Also noted are some previous medical records, dated February 17, 1953. Dear Judge Woods, the examination has been completed in the case of Bobby Burns, who was admitted to the state hospital under Act No. 3 from Sebastian County, Arkansas. I hereby certify the following as a true and correct report of the finding in this case. Diagnosis: schizophrenic reaction, chronic undifferentiated type with associated drug addiction, specifically Dilaudid. It makes one wonder which came first, the mental illness or the drug abuse, but whichever the case, it was quite some time before Bobby Joe was heard from again. In 1964, he did write the courts in Sebastian County and asked them to send him to the electric chair, but he had a change of heart. In a letter that he dated 1958, but the postmark on the envelope is 1968, he wrote to Judge Paul Wolfe, Dear Sir, as you may know, I was in such a mental state at the time I killed my mother in 1958 that the killings came straight from God, or, as might be said, out of the wild blue yonder. The last time I was at the state hospital before the killing, I was released to my mom against medical advice, and was taken home and cared for her in her room at my home. It was necessary for her to care for me, as my mental state was such that I could not care for myself. I do not recall being in jail after the murder. I did not know the date or the day I entered the state hospital, until much later when I happened to observe it on a clothes card here at the hospital. At that time, I mean at the time of the killing, I was aware of very little and remember very little. Later I went mad, and I suffered so hard from madness that I wrote the court, as you may recall, and requested that I be sent to the electric chair. I wanted to use this as a means to commit suicide. No charges were filed against me for the killing until I requested them in July of 1964. Now I have recovered from my madness and I feel much better. Dr. R.E. Walters is trying hard to rehabilitate me. I work on the exit ward as a housekeeper, and Dr. Walters has told me that execution is a lie and that no one wants to try me. He's determined to help get me out. What I would like to ask of you, gentlemen, is that you drop the charges that I requested be filed against me, so that I may now leave the state hospital. Mr. Baker and Mr. Lassiter, the former is the Director of Special Education, and the latter is the LPT here on the exit ward, would want to send me back to school and earn a degree, but first the charges will have to be dropped. Could you kindly drop them? I doubt if you want to deny that. I was hopelessly insane at the time I killed my mother, and it is necessary to drop them at this point. I am not a bad man. We are respectable people. My great-grandfather was a Baptist preacher in Logan County. My grandfather was a county clerk in Haskell County, Oklahoma. When we moved to Fort Smith in 1918, he paid a number of courtesy calls to your court. When the Cherokee Strip was opened, we were already out there. We had many friends in Fort Smith, and I once received a letter from Governor Francis Cherry, God bless him, telling me no one has the right to mistreat me. So I urge you to drop the charges against me, please. Heed Dr. Walters and myself. God bless you. I am, very sincerely yours, Bobby Joe Burns. The next correspondence from Bobby Joe is dated August 22, 76. To Judge John Holland. Dear Judge Holland, in June I wrote Governor Pryor about getting something done about my case, and this month I received a reply from his administrative assistant telling me the governor has nothing he can do and I will need to get a lawyer. Am I not entitled to a court-appointed attorney? I wish that you would appoint one for me so that I could write him and explain to him about my case and what I must do. Blessing you, I am, very truly yours, Bobby Joe Burns, State Hospital, RHB, Little Rock, Arkansas. The following year, he writes to Judge Holland again. Sir, I wish to repent. I know right from wrong. He ends the letter with, Please arrange for Sheriff Cothran to come and get me. Blessing you, I am, very truly yours, Bobby Joe Burns. By May of 1979, Bobby's getting pretty impatient with the judges. He sends a note. It arrives at the circuit clerk's office May 14, 1979. I'm going to kill you. Ann Clinton. I demand a trial. Bobby Joe Burns. Bobby Joe was obviously unpredictable, and his moods could change from day to day. One particular year, on October 17th, there was notations in his chart, visited Sun on Wednesday. Condition, morbid depression, wild, excited, fearful, and wouldn't talk. The following day, on October 18th, visited with son. Condition reversed. Convulsive laughter, talkative, then serious depression, followed by laughter again. Bobby Joe Burns spent the rest of his life in the state hospital in Little Rock. He passed away in October of 1982. And that's the story of Bobby Joe Burns.